Despite the fact that they're one of only 4 current NFL teams and the only one in the NFC never to appear in the Super Bowl,
the Lions' success over the last couple years has really been inside out. It started with the offensive line. 2 out of 3 of the interior offensive linemen. That creates a lot of questions and a lot of problems for a number of reasons.
New offensive coordinator and a rookie single caller at the center position. That's a really important job. So not saying they can't overcome it.
This is a very big deal for Ben Johnson. We know that he's a brilliant offensive mind.
And former defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn becoming the head coach of the New York Jets.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We are talking about the Detroit Lions in tonight's video. I'm glad the rhetoric around this team has finally shifted. It never really made much sense. Well, actually, maybe it did a little bit on paper. You know, the Detroit Lions have such a great season. They win the NFC North yet again, but unfortunately they lose in their first playoff game. And, you know, not even to rub salt in a wound here, but like, Ben Johnson leaves, Aaron Glenn leaves, and the NFL media world is like, all right, I guess Detroit's, you know, going to be a 9-win team next season, right? This is the biggest deal of the entire NFL offseason. And in reality, it was just, you know, fear-mongering, right? I can understand some hesitation, or like skepticism's wrong word, but like some hesitation saying, you know, all right, Detroit's gonna be the same 13-plus win season. Because I think it's gonna be different. And it's a little bit interesting. As good of a play caller as Ben Johnson is and was, I actually think the Detroit Lions offense is going to be a little bit more smooth and consistent and reliable. And I don't know, don't take consistent in a wrong way, but like, because obviously Ben Johnson had all these trick plays in his back pocket, but I don't know. I really think Detroit, and Ben Johnson specifically, got a little bit too cute in the playoffs. And you know, I like Morton, man. I like Shepard. And yeah, at the end of the day, like I said, the NFL media world's kind of shifted their opinion on this team, where it's kind of finally back to, okay, hold on, you know, yeah, they lost their coordinators, but hey, their 2 hires look good, 1 internal, 1 external, and at the end of the day, their roster is still creme de la creme, all right? So we're going to talk a little bit about this Lions team, but before we do, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily NFL content. Lions fans, appreciate you guys, as always. If we could try and get this video to 250 likes, folks, makes the world of a difference to me. All right. The biggest strength for Detroit last season, or a big strength, was their offensive line, all right? And I was reading a PFF article, and they do, you know, I've been doing this, you know, across the NFL for a lot of these videos because it's July 1st. They did an article just kind of ranking every roster this upcoming year, and I was pleasantly surprised. They had the Detroit Lions clocking in at number 3, and they said the biggest strength last season was the offensive line. And speaking of the offensive line, you know, we'll get to Frank Ragnow retiring in just a second here, but I don't know, man. This team has invested a lot into the future, whether it's Tate, Miles Frazier, Mahogany, you name it. The offensive line is still better than, you know, just about everyone else's offensive line. With or without Frank Ragnow, you know, Detroit's got the talent, and they've also got the depth, and especially with this young class coming in the last year or two, I'm still pretty excited about it. And last year, they finished 2nd in PFF's overall grade. They were number 1 in 2023. You got probably, you know, the best, if not the best, right tackle in the entire National Football League, and they're always able to find, you know, open running lanes for these running backs, and Jared Goff's always given ample protection. So Ben Johnson departs in the offseason, but at the end of the day, that foundation is still there. The Frank Ragnow retiring at 29 certainly sucks. You know, there's no way around it. It definitely sucks. And whether it's going to be Tate Ratledge, the rookie out of Georgia, manning it at center, we'll wait and see. But you know, they did lose Frank Ragnow, and they did lose right guard and Kevin Zeitler. Taylor Decker, Graham Glasgow, I get it. They're getting closer to their mid-30s. But that's why Mahogany was picked up. That's why Miles Frazier was picked up. And then especially in the second round of this year's class, that's why Tate Ratledge, offensive lineman out of Georgia, was picked up. And Detroit actually grabbed a trade. They moved up 3 spots from pick number 60 to 57 to grab this dude. He was a 3-year starter over at Georgia at right guard. He made 37 career starts in 5 seasons in college football. And since he became the full-time starter back in 2022, Georgia's average play yards per play jumped from 6.3 to 7.1 when he was on the field. So even further, as a starter, Tate Ratledge allowed pressure on 1% of his pass blocks, which was 13th amongst SEC guards. He also has about 2,000 career snaps at right guard, so that's second most in the entire SEC, by the way. He's ready to go right away. All right, he's just ready to go right away. And speaking of ready to go right away, kind of a different, very different situation, Aidan Hutchinson. And this is something like, we've been covering the Lions on this channel for like since 2022. And even when the Lions, like 2 years ago when the Lions were, winning the NFC North and Aidan Hutchinson was healthy, I don't know, man. It's crazy. People still don't even really understand just how much he does. And you've got a talented secondary coming into Detroit, specifically the DJ Reed acquisition, but you've got Amik Robertson returning, Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, Terrion Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw entering year 2. It's a very good, intriguing young secondary. The linebacker room is still very good. Jack Campbell's ascending into an elite level linebacker like really quickly. And despite playing in only 5 games, Aidan Hutchinson, before suffering that season-ending injury in week 6, he was literally having a historic season. All right, not even 5 full games, Aidan Hutchinson led the NFL with 45 pressures in not even 5 full games. He had 8 sacks, a 95 PFF pass rush grade, and a 38.3% pass rush win rate. Now, 38% pass rush win rate's probably not going to extend to a 17-game regular season, but when we come out here and you remember the storylines last year, and it really is truly insane the amount of injuries Detroit had, whether it was any group, defensive line, linebacker, secondary, you name it. It truly was insane how this team got caught by injuries. And I think I've been saying, you guys know I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. It was Philly's year. That's just the way it goes. Sometimes it's not your year, and as good as Detroit was, despite all those injuries, it was Philly's year. Right, that's just the fact at the end of the day. And so, we talked a little bit about Tate. We just talked a little bit about Aidan. I want to talk a little about Isaac Tesla. This was the Lions' 3rd-round pick, number 70 overall. They actually moved up 32 full spots for him. This is a 6'3", 214-pound wide receiver out of Arkansas, and it's I like this pick. All right, people were not loving the value of this, but Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, they accounted for 78% of the Lions' receiving yards last season. Tesla last year, he didn't do anything crazy, right? It's Arkansas. He didn't catch over 50 balls, but he did average 19.5 yards per catch last season, which was the 5th most in the SEC. He also ran a 4.43 40-yard dash at the combine. He does remind me of Amon-Ra St. Brown, at least in the sense of, people immediately were like, okay, they just overdrafted a guy. Some people weren't even sure if Isaac Tesla was getting drafted. And now it's turned into, all right, they have Jameson Williams, Sam Laporte, they've got, a bunch of running backs, they've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Isaac Tesla actually does kind of fit perfectly, especially situationally, on this wide receiver group room, all right? That's all we got for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Been way too long since we talked to Lions, so let me know if you guys want more. But hit that like button, hit that sub button, give me a loose win-loss projection for Detroit next season, and we will see you guys soon.